everyone. Welcome to this month's speaker series hosted by the Mars Robotics Association. We're based in Mars, PA and have FIRST robotics teams for grades 4th through 12th. This month, we have Phu Nguyen, a staff engineer at Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. In that role, he works on many rides and shows, including Fantasmic, Test Track, Winnie the Pooh, Slinky Dog Dash, Star Wars, and more. Previously, he worked at NASA, where he designed and launched 16 rockets. He also worked with the Navy's Department of Defense to test submarines. After high school, Phu graduated from Grove City College with a degree in mechanical engineering. Outside of work, he has been mentoring FIRST teams for 23 years. He's a licensed Florida professional engineer and inventor with more than 5 U.S. and international patents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mars for this month's speaker series, hosted by the Mars Robotics Association. Hello, Mr. Nguyen. Glad you could join us tonight. How are you doing today?
Glad to be here.
Awesome. First, Mr. Nguyen will explain a bit about what he does, and after, he'll answer some questions submitted by the viewers. So, if at any point tonight you think of a question, go ahead and click the link in the description box below and submit it. With that said, Mr. Nguyen, would you like to start your presentation?
Sure. So, hello, my name is Phu Nguyen. I am an engineer, as Lindsay mentioned, with the Walt Disney Company, where I'm a staff engineer. And the department I work with is Worldwide Safety and Assurance, and I'll go more into that later on. But as you can see, the picture behind me, next to me, with the dragon, is one of my first projects with Disney. So what is my interest? When I was growing up, and this is kind of laid the foundation for what I became or worked into. So it's great to do things you're interested in. So when I was in high school, middle school, elementary school, I was pretty good at math, very inquisitive, take apart, alarm clocks, lawnmowers. I worked on cars when I was in high school. So there was no FIRST back then, back in the Stone Age when I was going to high school. I went to the math club, we went to math competition, did science fair, and, getting my hands dirty by working on cars and trying to understand what they do. Next slide, please. After that, I went to Grove City High School. It was a very small school up in northwestern Pennsylvania, where I got my degree in Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. That's where I really developed my technical skills. So when I was in high school, I knew I was interested in science and math, and that carried me over to what I selected as a college degree, or what I was interested in going in. Of course, there are a few others in my class, and and when you go to college, you really know what you want to do. I was kind of different. I knew what I wanted to do, and sometimes people change their major a couple of times before they graduate with what they want. I was very fortunate that I knew I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, where my 4th year at Grove City College, we had a senior project. So right now, currently in every major university, there's a senior project you have to do in order to graduate from college with a bachelor's degree in engineering. And that's why I learned how to work with a team, work with different people with different skill set. And the good part about that is you can see that reflection in your FIRST robotics team. If you're fortunate to be on one, that you work as a team, you develop things, you troubleshoot, and as a team, you decide what the robot does. So when I was in college, we had a very good opportunity to compete in what's called the robot decathlon. University of Maryland was in it. I'm not sure if Penn State was, but University of Colorado was, and they were the reigning champion. Our team was only made up of like 5 team members, all mechanical engineers. So we sent one of our mechanical engineers to learn how to do electrical stuff. And of course, when we got to the competition, we saw about 20 other teams, and they all had about 20 students, 3 faculty advisor, and we're this small school with 5 team members and 1 faculty advisor. Our robot, we tucked underneath our arm, we walked in with it. Everyone, a few of the teams took like 2 or 3 people just carrying the robot. And we ended up in 2nd place, and we held like the land speed walking record for a collegiate program. Pretty big back then, because everyone was kind of, who are these guys? and what are they doing here? And it turns out how we did that was we brainstorm and we focus on what we could do out of those 10 events. Being a very small team, limited resources, we said we can probably do 6 of the 10 events very well. So we didn't try to do all 10 events, but we said if we do 6 out of 10 events really well, we should score very high. It turns out we were the #1 place team until University of Colorado overtook us in the 9th event and then became the winner, solidified their position when they took the 10th event. And of course, those 4 events that we didn't enter was mainly controls and electronics, which being 5 mechanical engineer, we were lucky to get the robot walking and didn't shock ourselves wiring it up. Another thing, so as you're going through high school, consider what your interests are. It could be engineering, it could be a medical, it could be a doctor. So understand what you want to do. And there's also technical paths that are not college bound. Right now, there's a big need for welders, machinists, things that you actually get your hands on, do things, really use math also, but you don't have to go to college in order to do those jobs that are technical related also. In my senior year also, I sent out a lot of resumes, and I applied to NASA, I applied to everybody I can think of to try to find a job. And I was very lucky that I was hired by a company called Armstrong World Industries. Next slide, please. So Armstrong is headquarters based out of Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact. So I went there and I interviewed with them, and it turns out that at Armstrong, we had more engineers there than Penn State did. It turned out that the program at Grove City College, and this is not trying to get you guys to go to Grove City College, but I'm saying that we had higher numbers of engineers at Penn State, at Armstrong, than Penn State, who's a major university. So we were very proud that our engineers were articulate, focused, and had a good reputation amongst the tri-state area of what their abilities are. There, I actually learned about automation, and that's one of the pictures of the production line. They make floor, ceiling tiles. If you go to your local hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, you see Armstrong products is in the flooring that you see in there. So, however, after about 3 or 4 months of being there, trying to get my legs underneath me, trying to know what they do, NASA gave me a call and they said, "Hey, do you want to come work for us, designing and shooting up rockets?" Wow, how could I turn that down? Next slide, please. So I said, "Wow, but wait a second, what's the catch? Oh, a 27% pay cut. Okay." So I took a pay cut to go do what very few people get to do, which is build rockets, design rockets, and shoot rockets. Now, these are not the orbiting one. They call these sounding rockets. They go up, and then they come down again. The good part here is that they go up and they have 0G for about any length of time between 30 seconds to 5 or 10 minutes, so that our research team, whether it be a graduate researchers, can do their zero gravity researches. For example, one of the research I was very fortunate enough to help out with was how does flame propagate in 0G? So we basically shot up a canister, had a camera, put an accelerant in there and light it up and see how flame just goes everywhere. So what happened is, how do things burn without gravity? And so we were able to do that and some various other things. Of course, the picture you see there is Walt's Flight Facility. It's based out of the eastern shore of Virginia, right there below the eastern shore of Maryland. I have many nights where we would watch the night launch and we just light up the sky. The first time I saw one launch, I was about a quarter of a mile away, and I just took off my eyes and blinked and was right off the launch pad. It went to Mach 2 before it got out of the launch rail, and I missed the whole thing. All I saw was the light trail that went up in the sky. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, this is the aerial view of Wallops Flight Facility right there. And that little circle, yellow circle you see there, that's my office. That's my old office at NASA. I was very fortunate enough to sit there working on there, and I would hear engines because it was a landing strip where large airplanes do their touch and goes. So what they do is they come down, they try to land and they accelerate and the engine revs and takes off again. So if you were an airplane nut, love to see things, that was also a good place to sit there, and they gave you tours of the airplane. So it was a great experience. My first 5 years out of college, not knowing what I know. I had great mentors. So soak it all up, do what you want to do, and that's why I got my teeth on the design work of things. After that, my family was living in Florida, so I said, you know what, it may be time to come home. So next slide, please. I looked for an opportunity, and I signed up with the Department of Defense, working on navies. I'm working with the Navy. I was not a military person. I was a civil servant working for the DoD and the Navy. The reason I was hired was because my experience with rockets. Even though I tested out submarines, these things carry rockets. So nothing I can talk about, but I'm just letting you know that that's the area I worked in. Great group of guys, great group of women and men working in our armed forces. And I realized that they do a very, very hard job that they have to do in order to protect the country. And I was very happy to be the technical end that support that also. Next slide, please. So what do I do now? I think that's the interest that everyone kind of try to figure out. What do you do at Walt Disney World? Well, I've been at Walt Disney World for 26 years. My title was project engineer. So it's a great title to be in because with project engineer, I am a jack of all trades, but my concentration is mechanical engineering. So when I first got here, they said, hey, Phu, you're going to go work on opening up Fantasmic. And I kind of went, what is Fantasmic? And I said, well, your role is to build a dragon about 50 feet tall. It dances, it blows fire smoke out the front, and it tucks back in the mound and does that, repeat that every night. I looked at my boss and I went, my last job was I have a rocket, right? It goes up, the flame goes up the back, and it does it once, and I'm done. It doesn't repeat itself like that. He kind of looked at me, chuckled, and said, you'll get used to it. So it was, I think, what they hired me because my experience in how to manage, look at the big picture from a design aspect, and also how do we integrate everything together. So at NASA, when I did the mechanical design, I had to be able to support all the electrical stuff, get stuffed inside of it. We used to say I'm putting 10-pound worth of stuff inside a 5-pound bag. How do we do that successfully? Make sure it tests right, deploy, and then perform itself at, in 0G gravity. So when I got here, they said, go build Fantasmic. But wait a second, we're not going to be building Fantasmic yet for another 3 months. So here's Winnie the Pooh. Here's the ride vehicle. It's supposed to do all this stuff. It's supposed to be like a seesaw back and forth. And it's supposed to be like you're in the flood scene, it rocks back. And I said, what do you want me to do? I said, design a ride vehicle for it, the motion base. I went, what? So here's where prototyping comes in. I went out, I knew what the dimension was, I knew what they wanted to do, and I built an erector set. And over the weekend, I built a little piece and I kind of mocked it up, the motion, the seesaw, and then the rocking, like the waving of a ship, brought it back to my boss. On Monday, I said, hey, these are the motion you wanted to see. Handed it to him, he goes, great, I got a meeting in 30 minutes, grabbed my prototype, ran off to the meeting. I kind of went, the prototype doesn't look that good. It actually looks very bad. What are you doing? He went, don't worry about it. I'll come back with it. So he came back, and after the meeting, he goes, sold. They want to use your design to build the motion base for Winnie the Pooh. So if you ever get a chance to go to Walt Disney World and ride on Winnie the Pooh, what you're sitting on is my motion base that I designed for it. So it's great to have those feelings of leaving a legacy with what I've done. So after that, I went over to Fantasmic. I built a 56-foot dragon, which 25 years ago was the tallest animatronic piece that Disney had ever built. We must have put in like 2 miles worth of wiring or more, half a mile of fiber optics, and there's flame that goes out of the front of and it's just amazing how I learned more about controls than I did mechanical engineering, because in order to do all that, I had to understand that the electronic control folks need certain position and indication so that, one, the robot doesn't run into the mountain on its way out, or can't go out the mountain until the doors are open, and then it needs to tuck itself back into a very small position after extending to 50 something feet, roar, flap its wing, tuck back down again, and be low enough so that it can back itself into the mountain. The only way I knew that was I had to sit down and ask a bunch of questions because I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew what my Dragon could do, but how do I integrate all that with the controls folks? So very humbling experience to sit down and talk to control folks because I'm like, what are you telling me? Could you explain that one more time in English and dumb it down because treat me like I don't know what I'm doing. But at the end of it, though, it was great because the Dragon worked so well. I had friends and family that came back and says, my daughter, my son saw the show. And when they saw the Dragon, they were just so ecstatic. It stood so tall, flame breathing. And I'm glad that that is another one of my legacy that I'm able to put in the park here at Walt Disney World. So that being said, also, then I was able to form those two legacy, but as you can see, I kind of went on and did more stuff. And right now, the bottom line is I'm the authority having jurisdiction over ride systems, ride safety. So my current role, of course, is ride safety. I deal a lot with maintenance procedures that they have to do every day, weekly, monthly, in order to open the ride the next day. If something goes wrong, I'm the one that goes out and investigates what goes on and determine if it's safe to open the ride again to a certain level. There are a lot of folks that supports us. I go talk to everyone from the mechanical engineer to the controls engineers to the software to fully understand what the system can and cannot do. I do that for every ride that I know, and then at that point work with maintenance to make sure that all those safety processes are in place so that we can open the ride every day and our guests are safe when they ride them. So I think we have more than 1 billion touch points in all of our rides all over the world. Touch point meaning we load over 1 billion guests. So between Tokyo, Hong Kong, Paris, California, Florida, I mean, that is a lot of places for everyone to enjoy the rides. I've also been a mentor for many first robotics teams for the last 26 years. Next slide, please. And I'll get to that later here. So as you can see, Mission Space was one of the ones I happily support. So if you get a chance to ride that, don't ride the slow one. You want to ride the fast one. I think you see the green or the orange. You want to ride the one that pushes you back in your seat and pulls 2 Gs on you. You want to be an astronaut after you ride that ride. And this little fellow up here called Pal Mickey, and this is where I am way out of my league because that's all wireless interactive control. We had developed a toy that when you took into the parks could talk to you, tell jokes, know where you're at, and tell you what the wait times are at certain rides also. So it's great to be on that team, working with our Imagineering group to roll that project out all over the parks. And it was one of the top selling toy for about a year or two at Walt Disney World. So that was a great accomplishment, great legacy. You can't find him anymore, but the technology still lives on. Next slide, please. My latest one was Star Wars. That you have to be there to see it. I apologize, but if you go on YouTube, there's probably a bunch of videos of the cargo bay. This is called Scene 5. You walk in here. When I first walked in there, I saw the rows of stormtroopers, the TIE fighter in the wall, and I said to myself, somebody's going to rent this place out to have their wedding here. I just know it. So to be part of this team and just the imagination of working with a team here to do this was great. My role in here was not design. My role in here was to make sure that the ride was safe for our guests. And it was a great job doing it, understanding how the ride moves, understand how we secure our guests, understand and put in place the maintenance process so that our guests can safely get on this ride every day. And of course, it's always booked. It's other than what happened with COVID, there was like a 2-hour wait time. You couldn't get here unless the best way to do it was book Fast Pass and get on there in your scheduled time. If not, if you're on standby, you're going to be waiting quite a while to get in here. And this area here called Scene 5 was at least, I think, 2 or 3 stories tall. Lasers that you couldn't tell was working, animatronics that move around, the controls and response to certain things. And it was just a great place to be and say, wow, you feel like you're on the destroyer, part of that immersive system. And you're like, I am one of the rebels who just got caught. They're taking me for interrogation. So it was a great immersive ride. And next slide, please. And as you can see, our cast from the newest trilogy got a chance to review the ride also. You know, J.J. Abrams is right there with the glasses on the front row. Ray's next to him in the pink. And if you don't recognize who this gentleman back here with the gray hair right behind J.J. Abrams is, he is the person inside the C-3PO outfit. He's the only one out of these casts right here that's been in every Star Wars movie. Because C-3PO has been in every Star Wars movie, I believe. And then, of course, next slide, please. One of my passion is FRC. If you had a chance to play Stronghold back in 2016, our robot from Team 1065, we won. We were able to go to championship. We won our South Florida regional. We went to championship. We won, I think, Archimedes, and we were able to get on Einstein. We lost in the semifinals. So our robot was a tank. If you can see that picture in the upper right-hand corner, that's our robot catching some air across that obstacle right there. It moved at around 12 feet per second, and it flew. It caught a lot of air. We had to inspect a pre-game inspection and post-match inspection just to make sure we didn't bend anything, and we changed out a lot of shafts, 2 or 3 shafts, some bent metal, clean up the wheel so we shoot right. But that was part of the whole process, is to understand the performance of your system. Every engineer needs to understand what he or she designed, what its performance level is, understand the game or the criteria of the game so that you can design it the most effective way. Our robot didn't do everything, but what it was designed for, it did very well. So it was able to shoot in the upper goal, run across the obstacle, and was able to park at the end. So it was great having our alliance to support us and us supporting them and be in this, worldwide semifinalists and winning one of the divisions at championship. And that being said, I am open for questioning. Any questions?
Yes. So I guess we're gonna move into some questions now. The first question is, what is your favorite project that you've worked on so far out of all your jobs?
My favorite project, I would have to say my favorite project is probably one of the more, it's not a ride. As I described to you, Pal Mickey is probably my favorite project because it took me out of my comfort zone. It opened my eyes to controls, interactiveness. There's an infrastructure, a lot of construction. So one of those areas was just testing. We had to test Mickey Mouse voices in Spanish and 5 different languages or something. Yeah, that was part of the other overall group. But you can sit here and listen to Pal Mickey talk in Spanish. I'm like looking out there, who's saying that, and just seeing how the creative team pull all that together. I would have to say that the Pal Mickey project was my favorite project that I have worked with Disney for.
So here's a pandemic type question. How does the current pandemic affect how and what you do at work?
How does it affect what I do? How?
Yeah. Are
Okay.
you working from home? Are you in person?
So the castle's behind me, so I'm able to go to the castle if I need to. But my role is I do work from home most of the time. But even then, if there's a need for me, I would come out there, and usually it's third shift, because that's when all the maintenance happen, to verify certain things, work with our cast member, answer any questions or any discrepancy about the ride, and making sure that's safely supported. And I'm not the only one. I work with what we call our sustaining engineer. So if there's a technical failure question, things like that, then I would pull in our sustaining engineer to help me route that area out. If it's more of a process and procedure question, safety process and procedure, I would take the lead on that. So a lot of that I'm able to work from home, But just as an example, I went into Tower Terror 2 nights ago to kind of just resolve some issues, sign off on some testing that had performed and completed. So I still go in, but working from home is different. The coordination between your team, you just got to have a different mindset when you're working from home.
For sure. So how does your job experience help with your first mentoring?
How does my job experience help with my first mentorship? Well, actually, it's kind of a give and take. I would say that my job experience helps me with my mentorship with FRC, and my FRC experience helped me with my job also. In a sense that when you work with a bunch of professionals, you expect certain things, questions, answer, response a certain way, highly technical. So just being in a room with all those folks, you got to be patient and understanding the answers they give you. I take that and I go to the FRC team, and most of the students there do not have those technical experience. So the questions I ask are different, and they actually teach me patience when I go deal with my Disney team, because I really have to be patient with our FRC team in the sense that they don't have the 10, 15 years of technical experience that I expect them to. The answers are different. And in that same sense, I want to mentor that, bring it along. So I have to say, hey, if they don't know what they don't know, how do I get them to do research, look into this, and bring out those creative thoughts also? They may not know how to solve it, but they may have an ingenious idea. They just don't know how to get there. In which case, that's my role to say, hey, if this is your idea, this is how we can get there. But it takes a different type of conversation to say, to do that. So it's part of our brainstorming that says, no idea is a bad idea. Leave everything outside the door, write everything down. And at that point, we'll filter through and do what, and find things out. So it's kind of back and forth. You learn some more about patience, but you're giving out the technical aspect and do the problem solving. So our team that I've mentored is not usually a technical mentorship in a way. It's more about problem solving and basically life questions. How do you solve things? What's your mindset? How do you think to solve problems? I don't sit there and tell them the Pythagorean theorem. I don't go through all that. I say, hey, this is how you solve a problem. Define it. What are your solution? Test it. See if it works. So if you go through that process, every time you come up with a problem, I think you're pretty much successful in how you solve things.
Yeah, definitely that idea of thinking through that all and things like that. So how was your transition from NASA to Disney?
Oh, very surprising. There's a Navy in between there too, but one was I built things that guests don't touch. I mean, the rockets. We had a termination button that if it deviates from its path, you press the button, it blows up. It costs a lot of money, but we don't have to worry about people getting hurt because we can terminate the flight before it ever gets close to any type of population. Same thing with the Navy. So the transition there is say, hey, how do I make it safe for riders? How do I make it entertaining? The rockets, it doesn't need to be entertaining. It just goes up, takes data, and come down. Here, I'm like, okay, you've got a Dragon. I got to make it work, and I got to make sure that it entertains guests. So one of the first one of my manager told me when I first got to work with Disney is, Phu, you're not a show director. Do the technical stuff, ask what they need to do, but when it comes to look and feel, let the show people do what they need to do. And I'm like, okay, I can live with that. How fast do you want to go? Okay, maybe we can get that for you. So just learning how to communicate with non-technical folks was a big difference, a transition I need to get to.
So what would you say is the most exciting part about working for Disney?
Well, I get to go to the parks every day if I want to. So one of the most exciting part right now is actually recently I just had a little baby girl she's 2.5, and we went to the parks. We went to Magic Kingdom this past weekend, and it just lights up her face. So the excitement for me now is just seeing all those smiles, whether it be from my daughter or those folks that comes here to enjoy it. It is probably one of the most exciting things, and walking through and see the legacy that I've left behind. You know, walk to Phu and say, hey, there's a long line, this is the wait, and all the kids that can't wait to get on the ride. That is some of the most exciting moments that says, hey, you know, this is good.
Yeah, Disney is the happiest place on earth after all. So if someone was interested in working your job, what skills would you recommend for them to have?
Well, working at Disney or just working in the technical field?
Working like the mechanical job at Disney.
Well, first of all, I think working at Disney is highly sought after, whether you're an Imagineer or Disney at the parks, you know, or around, but because it's a theme park industry. But then you also have the area where they do all the creative stuff. So WDI, when they say, I'm an engineer with Disney, everyone asks, you an Imagineer? And I went, no, I'm not, because there is a very diverse group of people at Imagineering. They can be painters, they can be audio, they can do a lot of things. But there's a small group of engineers there that create the rides and the shows. And they interact directly with all the creative folks that thinks up the show and the rides. So for the skill set you need is, depending on what you want to do, but from an engineering perspective, go get your degree. There's nothing better than getting your degree and understanding the technical piece behind it if you want to work as a technical or an engineer at Disney. And the PE behind my name there stands for professional engineer. It's a rigorous test. After 5 years of working, then you're qualified to take the test. And I think in Florida you have a 50% failure rate. So you're allowed to take it multiple times, so which is good. But I say that if you want to work in the technical fields, learn what you want to do. Are you a mechanical person? Are you electrical? Or are you data analysis? Are you controls? You like programming things? So there's a wide variety of stuff. Focus on going to college or hone your skill set, and then make some contacts. Look for internships to where companies you want to go to, and work that way. Because like I said, my first job was not with Disney. I did think I would work here. So don't have that mindset that says I'm going to go to college and I'm going to work for Disney. Same thing with my wife. She was an intern at Disney, graduated, went to work for someone else for like 4 or 5 years, and then when the opportunity came about, she went back and applied at Disney, and they go, oh, "Okay, we need you. Come on in." So having that experience ahead of time, developing that skill set with other companies, really enhances when you come work for Disney, because you have those other outside experience to bring to Disney, and not just going to Disney and starting right there right away.
So you're a mechanical engineer and you work on like entertainment projects like rides and things. How much do you work with the artists to develop the ride themes?
And that's where Imagineering comes in. I don't work in that aspect. By the time that is a whole what we call blue sky thing. So the process is there are folks out in Anaheim, California, at the Imagineering base, and they have these little secret room they go to, and they pitch ideas, and then they go do a bunch of presentation to the upper level. So even all the way up to the CEO, and they say, you know what, our Guardians of the Galaxy franchise is really, really good. You want to put that ride into a Guardian theme? Wow, I think that'd be a great idea. It'll enhance that, and then at that point, there are storyboards that they all draw up. I am no artist. That's why I use CAD and AutoCAD, and I draw straight lines. I don't do the fancy thing. After that, after they develop all the storyboarding and how to get through the ride, and because if you notice, most Disney ride tells a story. We don't just say, hey, get on here and whee, and then come back out again. We do tell a story when you go onto the ride. And so our Imagineers team tells a story, and this is what they want, and then they go that and talk to our technical team, Imagineering. That's where the small engineering group comes in, and they say, oh, you want to be able to fly in 0G, I'm sorry, but we can't bend the law of physics that well. But maybe if you painted everything black and have flight strings on you where no one can see and change the lighting, you can pretend someone can fly. So, and that's where the technical piece comes in. The Imagineer that does the artistic stuff say, we want flight time this much from this area, this is what it'll look like. And the technical folks says, this is how you can do it. Or if you turn it, we can't do it that way, but we can do it this way instead. And they go, oh, okay. And that's where the interaction comes in. By the time they get to me, when I was doing design work, it's already, here's what the design is, here's a flight time, go build it. And I go, okay. Now I have to size the motor, all the stuff that put it fundamentally out there in place. So my role as an engineer dealing with the ride and show is more, oh, wow, you guys got thought of everything already, but I still have to do the detailed design to put the show and the ride in place.
So what is the most difficult problem that you've had to overcome in your current job?
That's a good question. Most difficult problem is communications. It's always communication. Depending on your audience, you need to know who you're talking with and what you're explaining, because not everyone does tech talk or engineering talk. The better you are at explaining to them how to achieve their goals, the quicker it is to get a consensus and move in the right direction. As an example, when judges come by to your booth and ask you, tell me about your robot, you can explain it very technical, go into the details of the control, go to the line of code. But if that judge does not the software, you see this glossy eye, you're going to go, you lost the judge. So by knowing your audience and knowing how to explain those critical aspects, same thing with what I'm doing right now, is being able to explain what is our goal, how do we get there. So that's one of the most difficult things, is clear communication to make sure everyone's moving in the right direction.
So,
I mean, you've had experience with talking to judges here and there, I hope. And it is you need to know your audience.
yes. Are there any major changes that you would change to your career or how you've gotten to where you are today?
Maybe. There were various opportunities early in my career to move into management and do other things, and I look back and say, if I made the decision differently, where would I be now? So, but hindsight's 20/20. I still love what I'm doing and the work that I've done and the legacy that I'm leaving behind.
Yeah. So what's your favorite attraction at Disney, either from a mechanical standpoint or just an entertainment one?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a coaster fan, so I would have to say that Everest coaster would be one of my favorite high energy rides. And then I would have to say, from an entertainment perspective, you gotta ride Rise of the Resistance, the Star Wars ride. It's very immersive. You're there, you're thinking you're getting chased by Kylo Ren, and it's just a very immersive ride. And as far as simulator interactiveness, you want to go ride the Millennium Falcon. That's the other ride that I just opened in the Star Wars land. This is where you become a pilot, a gunner, a navigator, and you get to shoot things, and you actually are driving the Millennium Falcon. So think of it as a very big game platform. You sit there, and you turn the joystick this way, the vehicle does go that way, pitch, and you get to shoot things. So it's a very fun ride. You want to be interactive in that manner. So 3 different rides, but I think kind of covers the diversity of our rides, the various different type of rides we offer.
What are some unthought of aspects of designing rides that don't usually come to mind when you're explaining the job?
One more time?
What would be some of the unthought of things like designing rides when you explain this job?
Oh, well, there's certain things I can't explain or divulge. but some of those are trade secrets. But in my job, in my current job as safety, you know, the state is in there. We follow a strict standard of designs to make sure that the ride is safe. So our analysis, you know, has a high factor of safety for high energy ride to make sure that, you know, you walk off the ride, and our parks are designed that way so that, you know, you get to go home safely, enjoy the day without even thinking about, wow, that was an exciting ride, but no one thinks, how safe is it? Because it's our job to make sure that our guest doesn't worry about their safety.
Yeah. So what's more secretive, NASA, Disney, or the Department of Defense?
Well, I would say that NASA is not that secretive because I didn't have to get a clearance level in order to work for NASA. But I would say that between the Department of Defense and Disney, they're right there up there with each other. Depending if you go into the Blue Sky meeting, they're probably as secretive as the top secret level that you get over at Department of Defense.
Here's a first question. What's your favorite experience with first robotics students?
My favorite experience? Well, I just had one now this year. Is one of our senior graduating 2020. Graduating in 2020, informed me that he is going to Grove City College. So I've been mentoring him ever since he was in middle school, and seeing his growth, his maturity, and, you know, he went and visit Grove City College in the spring, and his parents just loved it. He loved it. He goes, Mr. Nguyen, I've decided, they selected me, but I've decided to go to Grove City College. It was great that he's going to get a chance to walk around the quads, go to the classes that I went to, and just that was exciting that he chose that profession. And it was great that I was able to mentor him because he's a great, great student. Great. I'm looking forward for great things from him.
So I know with the pandemic this changes, but would you mind telling us what a day as a mechanical Imagineer at Disney would look like?
Well, I sit here the way you see me right now, and I type a lot. But that being said, we do go out into the field also to look at certain things. When we're trying to open our park with the pandemic, we want to make sure that everything ride safety-wise from the ride side, mechanically, technical issue is safe, but also the social distancing, making sure that our cast and, you know, are positioned in certain areas, and also all the markings are in place. So working on those areas, the day in the life is making sure that all those safety practices are in place to make sure our guests are safe when they do come and visit, even at the reduced capacity that we have right now due to social distancing.
Here's another first question. What's the best advice you would give to a first team?
I'm sorry?
If you were going to give advice to a first team, what advice would you give?
Wow, enjoy what you do. My advice is, and you see a lot of this, is enjoy what you do and do what you enjoy. Don't try to design something that's out of your reach, because sometimes a robot that does 2 out of 5 things well will make it a long way, because the robot can always drive and always do things. So don't try to be, you know, the top 1% of the robot and try to design something that works, that does everything. Look at your team's ability, the resource that you have, and build your robot so that it can do the best it can do, but it doesn't have to do everything.
So going back to the career-based questions, what has been your hardest day of work?
Hardest day of work. Well, my hardest day of work would, and then this is when someone gets hurt on the job. And it's happened to me once or twice, and not to me, but to people at Disney that I know. And I have to go there and investigate or how come resolve this issue. So dealing with safety, hearing that someone got hurt, whether it be an accident or negligence, most of the time is accidents. those are hard days.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, but we have one last question to wrap some things up. So Mr. Nguyen, what is the best advice you ever heard or received?
Best advice I ever heard. I guess the same thing I gave the first team is do what you like. Do what you want to do. So part of that is do some soul searching. Find out what you really like to do, and then make that and pursue it. You may not know what you like to do right away, so you can wander around a bit. You know, you don't have to go right away and says, I was very different. That's my parents. I knew what I want to do. I jumped at it. I got it done, got out there and did it. But do what you like to do. Do this research on it. And not everything that you like to do, maybe not everyone sees that, but then also have a backup plan because life is tough. You know, if you want to be a musician, have a backup plan. If you want to be an artist, have a backup plan. You know, if you can achieve your dream, great. If you can't, what else can you do? So my backup plan was, you know, become an electrical engineer. No, I'm kidding. I was very fortunate to have accomplished what I did because my second year at Grove City, man, I almost transfer into a different engineering or transfer out of the engineering field because it was so tough. I got my butt handed to me, and I barely passed my classes. And at that point, I kind of stayed focused and said, "Hey, if you really want to do this, you got to focus more." So for all those who are heading to college, if you love what you want to do what you want to do, really focus on it.
Well, thank you for the great advice, and thanks for joining us today. And of course, thank you to everyone watching at home. Be sure to tune in next month for a special Halloween edition. The Mars Robotics Speaker Series is a production of the students of the Mars Robotics Association. Mars Robotics is a part of First Robotics, with teams competing in First LEGO League and First Tech Challenge. For more information about the Mars Robotics Association, the Mars Robotics Speaker Series, or any of our other programs, please visit us online at www.marsroboticsassociation.org. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good night, everyone.